New Wave Community Media.
It's just J-Mike.
Hey, Nefi.
Hey, Kori.
Do you want to take a little ride with me?
Ooh, where are we going?
To the past.
Okay. You know, some of the past is good times, some of the past is bad times, but let's do it.
And we're going to hit both.
Both of them?
Yep.
Both of All right, let's talk about that. Welcome back to another episode of Everything But Perfect. So let's start off with what we like to call the Chit Chat Challenge, where we serve up a conversation starter to keep the connection alive. This week's question is, what is your favorite season and why? Yeah, there's been a lot of changes in the weather lately, so this is a good one.
This is a good one. I always thought that I liked summer, but then I realized that I also like fall.
And I like spring, but then also winter. Who knows?
Really?
No, just like
I was like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's good. It's fun and easy. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, but it's good. I think it reveals a lot about a person when you learn about what seasons I like.
Especially the why.
I like that. So where are you taking me on this very adventurous ride?
So I was thinking the other day. And actually, no, I wasn't thinking. Well, okay, let me start. You and I, we've been talking a lot on our podcast and about the growth journey that we've kind of experienced, right? What does that mean? So growth is being from a place and just kind of blooming out, understanding different things. And for the last, I'll say year, I've been really on this journey, this focus to better myself, to be the best version of myself that I can be. But I had hit a plateau. I was like, okay, what else? And I felt like I needed something, but I didn't know what it was. And it turns out that what I needed was not to continue to look forward, but I needed to look past.
Oh, okay.
I needed to look to my past, travel back there some odd years ago, and fix a couple things I had going on there that weren't allowing me to continue that growth.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I think it's so important when it comes to our relationship and then our lives in general, right? For everybody out there. So I wanted to bring you on this ride.
Let's do it. I'm kind of excited because I do feel that this is a very important thing to talk about. I think for our relationship and even for our personal growth, it's good to kind of go to the back, go in the past, because there's a lot of stuff that we, I guess, hold on to, we manifest, we take baggage with us and things like that. That's something that could have happened years ago that we don't remember, or whatever the situation is, or, but at the end of the day, every experience that we go through in the past, it affects our current situation, our current mindset, and current feelings as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's, I know we hear a lot, you probably heard it, where people say, don't live in the past. Don't live in the past. The past is the past. And there is a lot of truth to that. We shouldn't live in the past, because when we do that, we're not fully living our present life. But what I realized was that my past, the things that I was, I never healed or got over or understood, actually, were holding me back. And I didn't know exactly what I needed to do to continue to move forward. And so I've been doing a lot of, self-care, self-love activities. And I got a life coach that's been kind of helping me with that. But also, I've been attending a healing circle, specifically for undocumented individuals that have gone through that in their life. And that circle has helped me go back to my past, heal that version of me, so I can live and continue to live my life now as best as I can be.
Right.
And that's just like more in a personal level. But I think when we think about it, like in general, you know, we're kind of scared to go back to whatever happened to us, right? There's this kind of thought or kind of role that we like to take on that is like, that happened, I'm gonna forget it. I'm gonna move on because I'm strong, because I'm whatever. But when we don't fully understand and accept what we went through, we tend to bring that along with us, and it manifests in many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
It manifests in relationships. It manifests in your personal life, in like, you know, your professional life, in so many ways. And sometimes we blame others for it. Like, oh, my relationship didn't work because so-and-so doesn't understand me, or so-and-so is not compassionate, and so-and-so is not like there for me when I need them. But is that the truth? Or are you not fully being there for yourself?
And that's a big difference, because if you blame somebody else, what are you doing? You're putting the blame on someone else, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is really look inside yourself and really be honest with yourself. Be like, okay, if this relationship didn't work, why didn't it work? Right. You know, yeah, the other person might have had a reason to, or had a part in it. But at the end of the day, it does come down to you. You know, you are the person that either attracts this person, you're, you know, getting around that person, you're part of it as well, you know, and it does go 50-50 in a relationship. And I feel that that's an important thing, is you looking inside yourself to really see if you're ready for a relationship. Because sometimes people aren't ready. They jump into a relationship and then down the road, it doesn't work. But why? Because the person, you weren't ready for it. So it makes a huge difference, especially in a relationship. And like you said, it also goes off with all the different types of relations that you have with family, with friends, work, everything. It really does make a huge difference.
Yeah. Especially and you know, it's, I think the biggest one that I can think of when it comes to a relationship is like, you know, like the unfaithfulness. And when somebody cheats on you, you have several options, right? You have several options. You can end that relationship and move on by yourself. Some people do that. But again, are they really moving on, right? Did they take that time to heal that part that was hurt? And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just leave. Yeah. And there's the people that decide to stay together. They're like, no, I forgive you. Did you really forgive them? Or is it just because you don't want to let them go? Or because I already spent 15, 13, 20 years with this person, I'm not going to give it up like that, right? There's all these different things. And when we don't really pay attention to how things affect us, that is when I think it becomes so much bigger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially over time. I think things that you hold on, like it does take a lot of time to get over it. You know, just, you know, a quick example, like for me, like, you know, before we got together, obviously I was in other relationships, high school relationships, of course, because I met you, you know, fresh into college. But anyway, but just a quick story. Like I do remember, I guess one of my ex-girlfriends in high school, and like I said, this is high school, right? So
right, yeah,
it's kind of one of those. We talked about this in our past episodes where you have three loves, you know, and at the time in high school, that's what I thought love was, and it was just one of the situations that, you know, eventually I found out that she ended up cheating on me and things like that, like at a. It was like a school program that she was in, and it happened. And then finally she told me. I was like, all right, well, that's it, obviously. And, you know, for me at the time, I was just like, well, I'm going to college anyway. So, you know, whatever, you know, but I do remember, you know, obviously it hurt. Like it was like a tough time for me. But the crazy thing is that now that I'm older and I kind of worked on myself and kind of I see how that actually affected our relationship, especially at the earlier stages, you know, because I went through that. I really did have trust issues, you know, and, you know, we've talked about that. And, every time like, we would go out, I was trying to like protect you, wouldn't let anybody near you and things like that. But why? Because I had that in my head. They're like, oh, well, if I've been cheated on before, I'm going to get cheated on again, right? And it wasn't that you gave me a reason to not trust you or anything like that. That's just something that I brought into our relationship based on my past relationship, and it was just one of those things that we struggle. And I think it did make a huge impact in our relationship in the earlier years, because I remember having those conversations where you're like, look, if you can't trust me, like, there's no point,
Right.
to continue this. And you flat out said it. But then like, at that time, I was like, you're right. Like, you haven't done anything. Why shouldn't I trust you? And now thinking back all these years later, I'm like, that's why I had trust issues, because what I have brought and hadn't healed that part of myself from my past relationship that I brought into our relationship. And that's just one little.
That's very minute.
That's very minute. Yeah.
But you see the impact on it. The fact that you didn't take the time to sit there and, I'm an analytical person, so I like to analyze a lot of things. And so I had a similar story too, but I sat there and I was like, I want to understand this for myself. But I think like in your case, it was that you were like, okay, well, it's over. I'm going to college anyways. There's going to be a lot more girls. That was it.
Yeah.
You didn't stop to think that, okay, wait, what happens when I meet another girl? Mm-hmm. How is my relationship going to change? What is it? And I know it's not like you're sitting there and making a whole research paper about your life, how you're going to live it. But even if you take 15, 20 minutes to sit with yourself and just try to like understand it and focus on maybe the lessons, maybe focus on your faults in that, if you played any role in that, and accept it for what it was. Mm-hmm. I trusted this person. I thought I loved her. She cheated on me. It's over. That's it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I will meet a different person. It's not going to be the same person as she was. And it could happen again, right? Like there's no guarantee that it's not, but maybe had you taken the time to kind of like reflect on that for a little bit, it might have changed how our relationship started.
Yeah, definitely.
But we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, but it worked out for us. 15 years later, we're still here.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. Like we. And so we're taught to just move on from the bad experiences, right? Like learn and move on. Okay, what do we ever take the time to learn?
Right.
And in my case, I never did. I was told to move on and I'm like, okay. And I moved on. And there came a point where I was like, there's something in me that's missing. And I didn't understand why I had I have a happy life. I have an amazing family, like, a job, like love, support, everything and some. So I'm like, but why am I still missing something? And through, like I mentioned earlier, I joined this healing circle, not knowing that I was actually going to go back into my past and heal that.
Right.
And, just a little quick story. I've never really gone into it, but I think I'm more ready now. I'm more prepared to kind of tell, certain parts of my life that I never have told anybody. And so, again, like I've said plenty times, I was not born here. I was born in El Salvador. And so I came to the US when I was 5. And every time I would be asked, where are you from? Or what's your life about? I'd be like, I was born in El Salvador, but I came when I was 5. And then my story that's where it starts, from 5 years old and older. And I was leaving out this such important part. The first 5 years of my life, the first 5 years of anybody's life, like, you know how important that is? You are learning new things. You are understanding what it is to be human. You are connecting. You are just taking in so much of this world. And so through this circle that I joined, I was able to go back to this time in which I was extremely happy child, but I also went through a lot of hard stuff that a lot of most 5-year-olds, most young kids may not go through, right? Hope didn't go through, but in my instance, I did. And so as a child, you don't understand half of, adult problems, if not all of them. And I was put in a situation where obviously the adults were making choices on my behalf. And they weren't really, I don't think they ever took the time to process the fact that those choices were affecting me as a child. Because we're so easy to be like, oh no, like, to your child, eat this or wear this and say this or go here, do this. But that's still a human being.
Yeah.
Right? That's its own person, your own entity. And, my mom, she had to immigrate to the US, but she didn't take me along with her. So that meant that I stayed behind. So automatically, at a very young age, I didn't have my mom. And, as a mom now, that is just heart-wrenching, right? When a child is not with their parents. And I stayed behind with family, my grandpa, like super loved, super taken care of, but I didn't have my mom. And so for the first 5 years, I didn't know what it was to have a mom. That thought was an abstract thought for me. It wasn't, I knew kids had moms and I knew everybody had a mom, but I didn't know my mom. And so it took me a very long time to understand that changed me. That changed certain behaviors in myself, the way that I interacted with other people, the way that I saw the world, the way that I saw myself. And I'm not going to go super deep into it because, this is a very long story, but when I finally reunited with my mom, she was a stranger, right? And a lot of kids that obviously grow up with their parents, they don't experience that. That's your mom. That's your everything. And I had to kind of get to know this person at a little much older age, and then start to trust, and then start to open up, then start to like really have her get to know me and me get to know her.
Right.
Whereas before it was just in pictures and phone calls. But I do, this experience of going back, I accepted it. I accepted that happened to me. It wasn't, the pain and, the whatever I went through wasn't done on purpose, but it happened. And so I learned to accept it. I learned to accept that happened to me, that, it changed me, that certain decisions changed the whole trajectory of my life, and that it's okay. It's okay to go back and maybe not fully agree with what happened, but it happened. I can't go back and change it, right? I can't. But I can go back, look at that small little girl and hug her tight because she was strong and she was like just super amazing. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I think I've learned. And that now I think I can be like, okay, I'm at peace with that part of my life. I understand it. In a way, I kind of accept what happened. And that now I can use that as the strength to continue to push me forward into my healing, wellness, growth journey.
Wow. And what do you think, what would be like the biggest, like, I guess, lesson that you learned that kind of clicked in your head? You're like, oh, this is it, or this is a big part of it.
I think for me, it was two things. And let me just mention that there's two things that I always kind of had within myself. If any of those that are undocumented or have family that's undocumented understand that there is this certain kind of like shadow that you need to live in, right? You can't be yourself. So the moment that you leave your country, you leave your family, you are starting what everybody likes to call the American dream. The first thing that you need to when you come here is you adapt. It's a different language. It's a different culture. It's everything so different. And you do not want to be the one that is different, that sticks out, right? So we all try to learn English. We all try to follow football and do all these, I'll say, American things. And so for me, for the longest time, I think I was living in shame, right? I'm like, I'm undocumented. Like, I'm not accepted. Oh. So that's shameful, right? Whereas I see, and then the other part of me was able to blend in so easily. And I was accepted. And I had to kind of go back and forth and be like, who really am I? Who am I? Because I can't be my true authentic self, because that's illegal, right? I can't go up and say, hey, I wasn't born here. Hey, I can't work. Hey, I don't have a social security number. Hey, I can't travel outside of the US. I couldn't say that. I had to kind of just omit things, so in school, when everybody goes on summer vacations, you're like, oh, cool. And I think it was in second grade too. I remember everybody would write a story about their summer vacation. Everybody was drawing airplanes and, vacations and stuff like that. And I was like, so I made up a story. I made up a story that I went to Disneyland. It wasn't even, but everybody was like, oh, that's so nice. That's so cool. And I was just making up stuff.
Wow.
And so I felt that I never could be my true authentic self. And there was always a piece of me that was hidden. And so again, now when I went back and I understood that part is a part of me, that is my life, I think I can now attach it to my full story. It's like, this is the very beginning. This is the middle. This is where I'm at now. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned, is that a lot of the times we, look at our experience, where we come from, or, what we've done to kind of get to where we are. And we feel ashamed, because we may feel alone. We may feel different than others. But there's nothing to be shameful. You can't be ashamed of being yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. You need to be ashamed of not being yourself. So, I'm glad that, I went through this and I got to experience it, because it's made such a difference in my life.
Oh yeah.
It's completely complete change.
So all these years, do you feel like you've been holding on to that and things like that? So how has the feeling been of being able to let go of it and accept it, and just accept it and not necessarily let go of it, because it's always going to be part of you, but accepting it and kind of moving forward? How does that feel?
I think the best way that I can put it is, it's like water. It needs to run. Water, it needs to flow continuously. And when you try to bottle it in, or when you try to keep it from flowing, it builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up until one day it's going to just explode. And it's going to continue to flow. It's not going to explode in anger and rage and not anything different. It's all it's looking for is to continue to flow. And I think that's the best way that I can put it. It's like, I was bottling in for so long, and all I wanted to do was flow. It didn't want to do anything crazy. It didn't want to drown me. It didn't want to hurt me. It didn't want to do anything, but just flow to what it's naturally supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think that's the other lesson too, that we've learned and with this, because whenever you hold stuff in, you're right, it stays in there and it bottles up, and it just, and like you said, comes to the point where eventually it's going to have to come out, one way or another is going to come out. And it kind of reminds me of kind of like what I went through, just recently, actually, like a couple years ago. A few years ago, it was, it was Christmas or New Year's. It was like a holiday. I do remember it was a holiday. And I just remember, just out of nowhere, I got so emotional and I started crying.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just like a tear or two, like I was like sobbing, right?
Right.
And I do remember people were here and, family was here, and it was a weird situation,
Mm-hmm.
even for me. But what was it though? What it was, I was holding on to grief, because, a little backstory behind that, my father had passed away. I think it was like 8 or 9 years prior to that. And when he first passed away, like, kind of like you're saying, you have to allow yourself to just feel and be your authentic self, right? But at that time, I felt that I needed to be the strong one.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to be the strong one for my family, for everybody around me. I needed to be that person for whatever reason. Nobody told me to.
Exactly. And as the man, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
You're a man. Like, I need to play into that role.
Mm-hmm.
What do men do?
Yeah. And that's what I did. I remember being the strong one. And, whenever people bring it up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And for a very long time, like, I didn't show emotions,
mm-hmm.
And I even remember this one specific memory where it was during his memorial, where I was the one that stood up. I was the first one to stand up and talk. And, and now thinking back, I don't know how I did it, honestly, because I stood up and I said what I needed to say without a tear in my eye. I just went through it, said it, and that was it, and I remember people after me were talking about stories and things like that, and they were crying, and I was just back there like, no, I can't.
Trying to hold it in.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I was like,
you didn't feel anything. Yeah.
I felt it. I really wanted to. But again, it was that, no, I have to keep it in. And I feel that the problem that I had is that I kept it in for so many years,
mm-hmm.
And even I think we've had this conversation before where just like, you're like, are you okay? Like, you haven't talked about it. And I'm like, no, it happened and just move on, and I was like that for a lot of years. I couldn't even talk about it because it would make me emotional. But why? Because I didn't allow myself to let it flow, to let it come out, to just allow myself to feel, mm-hmm. that's a big thing that happened to me, to us. And to be able to just push it away and just, or just bottle it in so much. And it could be overwhelming, not everybody's ready for it. And that's why it's important to go through that when you're ready, when you have the right mindset, and when you tell yourself and that you're ready to do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And let me ask you, do you think that you could have gone back in that meditation or even attended that retreat had you not opened those floodgates and allowed yourself to feel that holiday? Allow yourself to just cry and feel those emotions that after, like you said, you felt better, right? Mm-hmm. Crying and just letting go, you felt better, but it wasn't it. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think if that hadn't happened, you could have still gone to that retreat and experienced what you experienced, or you think that is the order that it had to happen in?
Oh, it's definitely, that was the order it had to happen, because when I went to the retreat, I went in there with a different mindset. I was like, okay, I'm going here for a specific reason, which was, for me, was to I don't want to necessarily say forgive my dad, because, I guess, for the lack of better words, that's the best word I could think of right now, is forgive him. So I went to that retreat with the mindset to forgive him. But I do feel to get to that point, mm-hmm. I needed to go through what I felt, because I didn't know, like, even before that, I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know what it was, but going through those emotions and feeling it, I felt kind of opened up my mind. And like you said, it kind of opened up the floodgates. So it was flowing. Mm-hmm. And at that point I was like, okay, now it's flowing. What else can I see? Right. Because it gets to a point where it's just there. It's blacked up. You can't see past it. Like, that's just it. But as soon as it starts flowing, then you could see the longer river, or whatever you want to call it, and you see other things. And then that's when I really thought about it. I'm like, this is what I need. Yeah. But yeah, definitely, I wouldn't have been able to heal and forgive that without going through that first.
And I think, you know, what I see from your experience is that, you know, in this journey that we've kind of embarked on, there's a lot of sayings, right? But one of them is that the answers are within yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think you're the perfect example because as your partner, I didn't know that, you know, it's not like I knew what to tell you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the most that I could do was be there for you and tell you that it's going to be okay. And it's okay to let it out, right? But that's not much in the grand scheme of things. That doesn't help you much. It just lets you know that I'm here to support you. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when I think of that, the answers are within yourself, within ourselves. That's what it means, mm-hmm. right? You start to listen to certain emotions, right? You had to go back to that time of pain, of one of the hardest things, most painful things that you had to go through, but you had to go back to move forward with it. Mm-hmm. And what you had tried to do initially is like, okay, it happened. Let me start moving forward immediately.
Right.
And that's going to help me. And it really didn't, right? Mm-hmm. It got bottled up. And so by you going back, you found within yourself the answer that led you to, you know, feeling those emotions, then going on a retreat, trying to find that answer. Hopefully you found it in some form, some way. And now you can accept this and it becomes a part of you, mm-hmm. not a bad part of you.
Right.
It's just another part of your lived experience.
Right.
Like you said, grief, it's not going to go anywhere. You just accept it to a certain extent and you live with it.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things that happens when we lose a loved one is we don't accept it. We question it. Why did it happen to me? He was so young. They were so nice. You know, why did God do this? We're good people. And that has nothing to do with it, right? It's life. We're all going to die. Mm-hmm. But accepting it for what it is, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And once we can accept the losses in our lives, whether it's a loved one, whether in my case, you know, the distance of a relative, of a loved one too, once we can fully accept those things, they become a part of us. Like we're a puzzle, right? It's just like the piece fits right in and you move on. You continue to live with it. And you can bring it out every once in a while, you know, but you don't need to, but you know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I think with time, like, you know, like they say, time heals everything, right? And it's true to a certain extent, you know, over mm-hmm. time, you do kind of like learn to live with the pain. You learn to kind of push through it and things like that. But I don't think that's enough. Like you really do have to go deep inside yourself to really find that answers, you know, and it's not clear. It's not something that you're going to just see on a piece of paper or you close your eyes and like, oh, there it is. Like, you know, it is things that you got to do to prepare yourself to really being able to find that. But at the end of the day, I feel that every individual has that power within them to do that. You know, they just have to choose and make that decision and do it. You know?
And listen. You have to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. And the little voices inside of us, like they're telling us, they're guiding us. And we're like, push it to the side. But, you know, once we're ready to listen, that voice does not go away. It's just so much more prominent and louder. So you have no choice but to like, okay, let's see what you got. And when you embark on that journey, you're like, oh shit, like this is true. This is real. Like this is exactly what I needed. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm just grateful to be on this journey with you because I just look at us and I'm just like amazed, just like, wow, like baffled because we're growing so much and it's just so beautiful. And I'm glad that we get to experience it, you know, that we listened to our voice and we embarked on this journey and it's been nothing but good things.
Yeah. And the best thing is that I feel that we're still, you know, I feel like we're kind of like still in the early stages of this healing process. And we've learned so much. I feel that we both learned so much as a couple, but more importantly, as an individual.
Yeah.
You know, because I know you got your stories, I have my stories. We have stories together, but it's also important to learn your own story and just find out what you need inside of yourself before you can even not commit, but being able to help someone else.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is
and just, you know, to end it, to close it off, I do want to say, you know, for any of you that are, you know, thinking, struggling, don't know, may feel lost, take your time with yourself. Be patient with yourself. You know, take time for yourself and, you know, sit, write, think, and the answers will come to you. You will know what you need to do. Okay. You don't need anybody else telling you what you need. It's just you, but you're going to have to listen and take a little bit of time to sit with yourself and try to find what your next step is. So I really hope that you guys find what you're looking for. I really do. And, you know, this is a journey of like self-exploration and self-discovery, but you don't have to do it by yourself. You know, if there's somebody that you trust, if there's somebody that you know, your partner, your best friend, your parents, whoever brings you that, you know, support where you feel very comfortable with, you know, maybe talk about them. They can help you out. You know, they're not going to give you the answer, but, you know, knowing that people support and love you regardless is a good way to push you towards the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Like they said, surround yourself with people that love you and you'll go a long way.
Yeah. Yep. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you.
And if you guys want to engage more, make sure to visit us at www.newwavemedia.org. Make sure to subscribe to EBP on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And don't forget to follow us at everythingbutperfect.podcast on Instagram.
And remember, love is an endless adventure, so cherish your connections and keep those conversations flowing.
So thank you very much and have a good night.
Bye.
Later.